What's going on, y'all? Today I'm very excited to give you guys my first run review of the Saucony Endorphin Azuras. So with that being said, let's get right into it. Just a quick disclaimer, Saucony did send these shoes out to me. They are not paying me. They just sent these out for me to review. I don't really have to run my thoughts by them first or anything like that. So thank you to Saucony for sending this pair over, but I will be giving my honest thoughts. So take with that what you will. So let's get right into it. So starting out with the outsole of the Saucony Endorphin Azuras, we have an XT900 rubber outsole, and it looks pretty standard. It kind of reminds me of the Saucony Endorphin Speed 5 outsole, but it does look a little bit different in the forefoot. And honestly, I mean, I only ran 2 miles for my first run in this shoe, and I ran it on the roads, and the traction stuck like glue. I know it's only been 2 miles, so we're gonna break this traction in and make sure that as the rubber wears down, it still provides really good traction, as well as once I run a little bit on different surfaces, maybe if the roads were a little bit more wet or if there's a little bit more debris on the roads that I'm running, I definitely want to try this traction out a little bit more before I give my final thoughts. Obviously, it's only been the first run, but overall, the traction felt really, really good on the first run, so no complaints on that. As for durability, we're gonna talk more about that once I do the full review after putting a little bit more miles on the shoe. Now moving on to the part that I've been waiting for and the thing that got me excited about the Endorphin Azuras. If you guys watched my shoes of 2026 video, I was very, very excited about this model. And the reason for that being is that they have a full length super foam, no plate in the shoe, which is like my favorite combination of a shoe for a midsole, especially for like a super daily trainer, I would say. Something that's not plated so it trains your body a little bit better, and also something that's not super, super high stack height, probably the max limit that you can get to legal limits. So 40 millimeters of stack height in the heel, dropping to 32 millimeters of stack height in the forefoot, giving it an 8 millimeter heel to toe drop. Now, personally, I guess Azura aside, I feel like that is probably the perfect stack height. I know that that's like the legal limit or whatever, but I feel like for me personally, when I run in certain shoes, when it's over 40 millimeters of stack height, I feel like, I don't know, like I'm spoiling myself, or I'm not maybe like training myself to the full benefits, or getting the full benefits of my training. And then when I have less than 40 millimeters of stack height, maybe a spoiled thing, but I feel like it's just not enough cushion sometimes. It depends, like certain shoes, I guess with certain stack heights feel a little bit different, more cushioned or less cushioned. But I do think that 40 millimeters of stack height in the heel dropping to 32 millimeters of stack height in the forefoot, for me is kind of like the sweet spot of like, okay, I can really use this midsole for everything if it's the right foam. It gives enough impact protection, gives enough ground feel, it doesn't feel too high off the ground, doesn't feel too low to the ground. So with that being said, the Saucony Endorphin Azura has a full-length Power Run PB midsole. As I said, the stack height a million times at the legal limits. And honestly, after just the first run, it feels amazing. It's kind of like what I've been wanting in a shoe, especially with Saucony's foams being some of my favorite foams, like the Power Run PB and then the Power Run Plus in the Ride series. I just really like this setup so far. I did run a slightly faster than I meant to. Like today was supposed to be kind of a recovery day, but I ended up running a little bit faster. And also at the end, I was doing some strides just to feel what this cushion setup felt like as I picked up the pace. And overall, it felt really good. It felt a little bit on the firmer side, definitely on the firmer side, but it felt like it had energy stored within the midsole, which is typically what you get from Power Run PB or any like beaded midsole. Whenever I see beads on the midsole, I just think like, okay, there's a little plastic in there and it's gonna be a little bit more bouncy. Compared to just initial impressions, compared to the Ride 19, I already feel like I prefer this midsole a little bit more than the Ride 19. Now, I think that the Ride 19 has a great setup, but the Ride 19 feels lower to the ground as well as a little bit more mushy and soft, versus this shoe feels a little bit higher off the ground. So in my head, I'm thinking on longer runs, it's gonna have better impact protection, as well as it just feels a little bit bouncier and a little bit more firm and stable, which I personally prefer over a more mushy and softer ride experience, but both shoes are very, very comfortable. So we're gonna put more miles on this midsole before I give my final thoughts. I definitely don't want to call my shots too early, but I really, really, really enjoyed that 2-mile run in this shoe. I know it's a really short run. It was a recovery run too. So I'm not gonna like overhype the shoe just yet, but I am very excited to run more in this midsole. I think it's going to be really good, especially if it needs a little bit of break-in time. I thought that it was super comfortable out the box, but we'll see as I put more miles on the shoe. I think that this shoe is going to be better suited for a little bit faster runs. and also faster and longer runs, which is kind of that unicorn category where like, the players like Asics Super Blast 2, the Asics Mega Blast, Nike Vomero Plus, a lot more expensive shoes are typically in that category. And I feel like this is going to be a nice, I don't even want to say budget option for that line. But I do feel like this shoe is just way better priced than a lot of those shoes that can usually handle that fast and long category. So we are going to see. Overall, I'm very impressed with the setup so far. I'm going to put more miles on the shoe before I speak any further on the midsole performance, but so far so good. If you were looking at the shoe and you don't want to wait for my full review, definitely go ahead and cop it. I don't know if you're going to regret it. But with that being said, let's move on to the upper as well as the fit of the Endorphin Azuras. So first off, touching on the fit and the upper of this Azura, the fit, in my opinion, is true to size. As you guys know, I have a slightly wider than average foot. I typically wear a size 12, and that's what I got in these, and I'm pretty happy about it. Like, I think typically Sauconys, for me personally, run a little bit narrow, but in my opinion, like the upper feels like it's not super wide, but it just feels a little bit wider than some of the other Saucony models. Not to the point where you have extra like room in the forefoot. It's to the point where I personally just feel like my wider than average foot is very comfortable in the forefoot, and then the midfoot and heel lockdown were very good, especially once I did the runner's loop in the heel. My heel lockdown was really good. I would say 95 to 96% if I'm being exact. It didn't feel like a exact one-to-one fit just yet, but I'm gonna wait to see if the upper breaks in a little bit. So if you are looking at sizing, I would say go true to size. If you have a narrower foot, I would still maybe think go true to size, just because I feel like the length is perfect. If anything, it's gonna be that width that's what you're gonna wanna look out for. If you have a normal size foot, I think true to size is perfect. Slightly wider than average foot, I think you can get away with true to size because that's what I have. And then if you have a narrower foot, kind of tough to say because I don't have a narrow foot, so it's up to you. As for the upper and the materials that they use on the Endorphin Azura, I feel like the upper kind of feels like the mesh that they used on the Endorphin Speed 5s. Obviously, it's the same brand, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's exactly the same mesh, but they do put some kind of plastic or rubber overlays all throughout the shoe, and then in the back, the heel cup has kind of like a faux leather situation. If I'm being 100% honest, I'm not a huge fan of like the faux leather look, but again, that's just purely aesthetic, and it might just be my colorway. I think this colorway is really nice, but when you look up close, I'm just not a huge fan of the faux leather, but that doesn't really affect the performance at all, and I don't think most people are gonna be looking at your shoes that closely. So overall, I think that the materials are okay to good. I think that the mesh feels a little bit stiff right now, but again, it's a brand new shoe. I only ran 2 miles in it. Once you heat up the shoe while you're running and you put more miles in the shoe, I feel like this mesh will start to break in, kind of like the Endorphin Speed 5s did for me. As for the tongue is one of a thinner tongue, and it's one of those like fuse-like tongues. Honestly, also not my favorite type of tongue, but I didn't have any problems with the 2-mile run. The bigger test would be to do a longer run in the shoe to see if this tongue causes any sort of discomfort. I also didn't feel like the laces bit into my ankle or bit into my midfoot at all, so that's usually a tongue problem. So even though I'm personally not the biggest fan of these types of tongues, it didn't cause any discomfort just yet, so I will keep you guys posted in my full review. Also, one other thing to note is the laces. I really like the laces. Now, they're just normal flat laces, but the reason I like them is because they are on the longer side, so you do have a lot of room to do the runner's loop. If you want to even tighten up the shoes even more, they have an extra eyelet as well. So I personally prefer shoes having longer laces. I kind of don't like it when the shoelaces are kind of perfect for the non-runner's loop, and then when you try to do the runner's loop, you're trying to like squeeze the shoe and try to like fit in a double knot and the runner's loop. So I personally really like the extra long laces, but that's maybe a personal preference. So that's gonna pretty much wrap up the upper and fit. And overall, the Endorphin Azuras are off to a very strong start. I understand it's only been 2 miles. I'm trying not to hype up the shoe too much. I just really enjoyed that 2-mile run in the shoe. And it's one of those shoes that I feel like I'm gonna be very excited to run in and put more miles in. I also think that this shoe is going to be a very versatile shoe. If I had a prediction, I would say that this is the type of shoe where you just have to buy one shoe. And I might be calling it a little bit early, but I feel like you could do a lot of different different types of runs in this shoe, including maybe even race day, because like it has that super foam. It doesn't have a plate, but then again, like the Endorphin Speed 5s had a plate, like a plastic plate, and in my opinion, I don't know, underfoot they feel kind of similar. And with that super foam, I feel like that's kind of all you really need in a race day shoe. But then again, I'm also not that fast. So that's gonna be my prediction for this shoe. We'll see if it lives up to it. We'll see if the upper breaks in, the midsole breaks in, and the traction breaks in. But with that being said, I'm very, very excited for the Endorphin Azuras, and I'm gonna keep running in the shoe, and I'm gonna try to get my full review out as soon as possible. So with all that being said, I will catch you guys in the next one. Let me know in the comment section down below if you've tried the Azuras or if you have any questions regarding this shoe. I will do my best to get back to everyone, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching.